It's a constant toss-up between being a cardio bunny or being an accidental Mr. Olympia. In reality, both weightlifting and cardio have important individual roles in fat loss, so in today's video, we're gonna take a look at which one may be more important in your case or just in general. Let's go. What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, John Mango. I'm here representing Beyond the Iron, where I'm looking to take your fitness and nutrition further so you may change your life forever. Remember, this is just advice. Of course, very important advice, hence the need for me to want to make these videos. Nothing's gonna happen if you don't follow it, but if you do follow it, also keep in mind it's just advice. Anyways, if you're new to the channel, I just want to say welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I drop lots of fitness and nutrition content, obviously, every single week, so if that's something that you're interested in, then by all means consider subscribing. At the end of this video, I'm actually going to give you my personal split and exactly how I go about managing both weightlifting and cardio, and I'll also give you some recommendations for that as well according to your goals, your schedule, your lifestyle. Let's go ahead and talk about weight training first, and of course we are specifying weight training for fat loss in this case. Okay, so weightlifting has an advantage and does something that cardio cannot do. It simply can't do it, and that is of course build muscle. Well, at least if done correctly, you'll build muscle doing it. Now, if you're thinking, well, I can do cardio by just lifting weights faster, like that meme that used to be on the internet. In reality, doing circuit training like that with lifting weights relatively fast with no rest in between does not actually produce optimal or even any muscle gains, because of the fact that eventually your performance degrades over time pretty quickly throughout that workout, to the point where relative to your 1 rep max, you're not lifting enough weight for enough volume to see muscle gains. So circuit training is not in this discussion. Okay, so with that being said, if you're looking to lift weights, your primary goal in doing so should not necessarily be fat loss, but more so muscle and strength gain. Now, muscle has been touted as one of the main, if not the main reason why somebody who's in great shape has a much higher metabolism than, everybody else. And the reason for this isn't necessarily theory. I was going to say theory, but in reality it's because muscle tissue actually is more metabolically active. As a matter of fact, it is metabolically active, whereas fat mass is not. So at rest, muscle tissue actually uses up calories, of course, to sustain itself, whereas fat tissue does not. Now, the reality about this is that adding muscle tissue actually doesn't make nearly as much of a difference as people think. It's pretty negligible until you get up to about maybe a 15 to 20 pound difference in muscle mass when comparing two individuals. Instead, not just the muscle tissue itself, but it's more so the fact that you're constantly working out and damaging the muscles in the gym, causing your body to have to work overtime outside of the gym to replenish and repair everything that you did throughout that workout. Now, on top of that, the psychological boost is not to be neglected here. The fact that when you lift weights and you get a good workout in, your body feels a little fatigued, but it feels good. You have that psychological boost that's going to keep you motivated throughout the day, which is ultimately going to increase the chance of you sticking to your diet, being stricter with your diet, and making sure that you don't waste what you did in the gym earlier. So that could also have an indirect positive effect on your fat loss. One thing, however, does need to be said for the fact that weightlifting is not as efficient at burning calories as cardio is, at least not in the moment or acutely. So let's go ahead and talk about cardio then. Before you start thinking if cardio is the best for fat loss just off what you heard at the beginning and the fact that this burns more calories, you got to hear me out, and we're going to determine exactly the route you need to go to fit these in to make sure you're maximizing your fat loss. So now, talking about cardio, I'm not going to talk about the specific forms of cardio and which one's better, like low intensity steady state or high intensity interval training. I'll make another video about that in the future. If you'd like, comment below and let me know. But instead, I'm going to be talking about cardio as a whole in terms of, what its purpose is in terms of elevating heart rate and, again, burning more calories versus weightlifting. So we'll go into that. So like I mentioned, cardio does burn a lot more calories in the short term. Right away, within an hour, if you had a choice to burn more calories, and you could do either weightlifting or cardio, meaning respectively what they're meant to do, weightlifting for building muscle and cardio for burning calories, it's pretty straightforward. Of course, you got to keep in mind the fact that cardio cannot build muscle. At least most of the time it can. Unless you're a complete beginner trainee, then you're not going to see any results from, let's say, running uphill that person would experience. But again, those gains are going to be so minimal that it's almost not even worth mentioning. Now, another thing to keep in mind here, and this is actually the reason why when most people decide and say, okay, I'm going to start a fat loss journey, I'm going to go to the gym, and they tend to be those cardio bunnies. You know, they go and they do endless amounts of cardio. Basically, the people I make fun of on my Instagram. Those people, and I don't mean to make fun of them, but the reason that it's so much easier to go to cardio is simply because cardio is easier to execute. You jump on a machine, anybody can run, anybody can ride a bike, at least almost anybody, but weightlifting, and weightlifting correctly specifically, is way more difficult. So cardio burns the most calories, which means it's elevating your metabolic rate. Another thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned with the weightlifting, is the fact that cardio does have positive psychological benefits as well. Of course, once you finish a long run, you get those endorphins, that classic endorphin rush. You get that from cardio just the same as you would from weightlifting. They are somewhat different feelings, but regardless, you're gonna feel good, you're gonna feel more positive, better energy, and again, it's going to increase the chance of you sticking to your diet, which on its own could have a massive impact on your fat loss on top of what you're doing in the gym. Here's the thing though, here's the kicker. Do you want to look like a marathon runner? Hell no. So the issue with cardio is that you can't actually just isolate and burn fat with cardio alone. Instead, you're stuck with a wider spectrum of losing weight simply because, yes, you're in a caloric deficit, but as I've mentioned in plenty of videos in the past, there's certain things you need to do via weightlifting that's going to ensure that you look as good as possible, because at the end of the day, losing fat can be very simple, but losing fat and looking good are two completely different things. Again, marathon runner or, you know, not as lean but has some muscle type of weightlifter gym goer. That's a little bit more subjective, but everybody can agree that this looks a lot better than either of those two last scenarios I mentioned. So of course you're thinking, well, obviously everybody wants to get there or maybe get close to that, but it's going to take a long time. That is true, but in the short term, you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for long term looking good like this. And like I mentioned, weightlifting is harder to do, so it's better to start off with weightlifting as soon as you can, getting a trainer or coach or somebody to show you the proper form, the proper technique, and the proper programming. That way, as you lose that fat, you are holding on to muscle as much as possible, or even gaining or building muscle in the process of losing that fat, which will get you closer to that look as opposed to the marathon runner look, because at the end of the day, that's also going to lead to that indirect psychological benefit or drawback that may encourage you to keep going with your fitness journey or just fall off completely and lose motivation. So it basically comes down to probably what you expected from the beginning of this video, and that's going to be that they both are extremely important. If you want to burn calories and maximize calorie burn right now, cardio is the way to go. But if you want to set yourself up to look better in the future, you're going to have to implement both. And of course, I did make a video on diet versus exercise, which you can check up in the top right hand corner of the screen, and that's actually going to show you that you could lose fat without cardio. A lot of people have done it, and a lot of people can do it pretty easily, but you're still gonna need that weightlifting component. So you really gotta weigh out the pros and cons. Cardio is something that you should implement daily, but for the long term, and of course that's something you should keep in mind if you wanna look and feel as best as you can in the future, then weightlifting is important. But the question is, how much of each, or how do I incorporate both? So I'm gonna quickly segue into my personal split. Currently what I do is that I weightlift 5 to 6 days a week, and I take 2 days off from weightlifting. So that's another pro or con I could have thrown in there. Weightlifting, you can't necessarily do hard every single day. Whereas cardio, I'm doing every single day, okay? For myself, I prefer the psychological benefit that I get, even if it's not something that's really pushing me towards my fat loss goal. It is indirectly making me feel better, taking me through the day, getting me prepared for the day. And on top of that, that calorie burn that I mentioned is an added bonus. So every single day you can do cardio, and I do recommend that you do it every day. However, if you're just starting out and you've only been going to the gym maybe twice a week, then start with something more conservative like 3 or 4 times a week, or stay with 2, make sure that it's consistent, and then up it from there, 1 session per week, and then eventually when you're at 5 times per week, you're good to go. Remember, if it's worth doing one day, it's worth doing every day, and cardio, definitely no exception. The way you split it up for your schedule is, if you're prioritizing fat loss as your goal, and then a secondary goal to that would be muscle preservation or building, then of course you want to prioritize cardio and your diet over weightlifting, but weightlifting should still play a role. So what I would recommend is doing something like 3 days a week. Again, if you're starting out, 3 days a week with cardio, and you can only do 2 of those days with weightlifting. Or to make it super simple, just pick a certain amount of days that you go per week to the gym. If it's 3, do 3 workouts with weights, however much time you have allotted, after you do the cardio. That way you get both of them done in one session to maximize time, efficiency, and getting you to your gains goal. And of course, like I said, I'll make another video covering fasted cardio and all that, but to break it down, what works best for your schedule is going to work best for you to stick to in the long term. So if you can only do cardio separate from weightlifting, then you got to pick the days, and that's totally fine, so long as you get that cardio in if your priority is fat loss. Cardio and diet is what's going to speed up the process. But again, if you were hoping that you could get out of weightlifting, you can, but you're not going to look so good, and in turn it's probably not going to lead to you feeling so good about yourself even if you lost that fat. So just keep that in mind. Try to implement the weights, fit it into your schedule however you can. If you're prioritizing fat loss, the weights can take a back seat, but still do it. Set yourself up for the long-term success. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If so, please leave a like. If so, please leave a like down below, share, comment, and subscribe for more weekly fitness content coming here every single week. Let me know what else you'd like to see next in that comment section below as well, by the way, because I'm curious to know, and I'll be sure to bring that to you. So that's it, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you as always. I'll see you in the next one. I'm out.